All right, good evening. Once again, please welcome East Texas Now's Washington correspondent Josh Rultenberg. Good evening, Josh.
Good evening, Devin. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. A lot to go over. Let's start off with President Biden. Today, he announced a new monument honoring Emmett Till and Mamie Till Mobley. So what did the president say in that speech?
Yeah, Devin, he said obviously this is something that's very hard to relive, but it's something that Americans need to continue to learn about, because obviously there are a number of states around the country that are talking about banning books, and the president is saying that he's making history crystal clear here. Now, obviously what happened to Emmett Till when he was 14 years old, brutally murdered, and then his mother decided to have an open casket. The president today said that that was a very courageous decision on her part. Today actually would have been Emmett Till's 82nd birthday if he was still alive today. And so the president and the administration wanted to do this for some time. Also, keep in mind, last year the president signed anti-lynching legislation in Emmett Till's name that made lynching a federal hate crime.
Sticking with President Biden news here, let's go now to another announcement of his today on the expansion of mental health services in the country. So what is the specifics of this mental health move?
Yeah, well, this was part of President Biden's what he called quote unquote unity agenda when he spoke last year during the State of the Union. But basically what this all boils down to is the president wants to make sure that mental health and physical health are on the same playing field, because plenty of times you could go to a doctor if you have something physically wrong with you, and the chances are that it's going to be covered by your insurance. But if you have something that there is inside you that they can't see, that there's something mentally going on, not a lot of times are there things that are actually covered by your insurance. And so the president is trying to close a loophole to a law that's actually been on the books since 2008. It's called the Mental Health Parity and Addiction Equity Act. And this would just make sure that private health insurers have the same amount of equal access and parity from mental health coverage to physical health coverage.
We will continue to follow up on the actual bringing that into insurance and how it's all going to work out. In the meantime, let's head to the Senate. So the Senate is actually moving forward on an annual military spending package. What's the latest on this?
Yeah, so this is the Senate taking this up a week or so after the House did, but the Senate process is going a lot more smooth. This was passed out of committee on a bipartisan basis. Annual defense bill for the Pentagon, $886 billion. There were a couple of amendments that were added tonight, and there could be some that are added tomorrow, but Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says he wants to get this done by the end of the week because Congress goes on vacation for the entire month of August before they come back in September. But keep in mind, if that does happen, remember the House passed their own version just last week, and it had a number of polarizing amendments when it came to getting rid of funding for troops to go get abortions, also gender-affirming care, and diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. So when it's all said and done, when the Senate will eventually pass their own bill, the Senate and the House are going to have to get together in what's called a conference committee, and they're going to have to come up with a bipartisan, bicameral agreement, and they're going to have to do so by the end of September. Otherwise, this country will be in real trouble.
Again, something that we are going to continue to follow along with. In the meantime, Speaker Kevin McCarthy hinted in an interview in the House that they may consider an impeachment inquiry for President Biden. So what can you tell us about Speaker McCarthy's remarks, and what has the reaction been to those remarks?
Yeah, this is the most direct threat that Kevin McCarthy has had to Joe Biden when it comes to impeachment. But you have to keep in mind what he said last night and what he's saying today, kind of two different things. It was a very direct threat yesterday when he spoke to Sean Hannity on Fox News, talking about President Biden's alleged behavior rising to the level of impeachment. Today, speaking with reporters, he talked more about what you said, the inquiry of impeachment. And he said the reason that House Republicans would really go down this road is so that Congress has the most power they have to ultimately investigate the president. Now, keep in mind, there are a number of House Republican-led investigations that simply have not tied President Biden to Hunter Biden, his son, and his foreign business dealings. This is what House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and the Republicans are ultimately hoping to achieve, but there has been no smoking gun to this point. The White House has basically called this ridiculous. The Democrats called this a distraction. But when you get to the politics of the situation, this has everything to do with Kevin McCarthy and Donald Trump. Kevin McCarthy has not endorsed Donald Trump. He's still trying to curry favor with the former president because he's been on the record saying that perhaps President Trump isn't the best candidate. And also, despite reportedly saying that he would promise to expunge both of the former president's impeachments, which would be symbolic, that vote hasn't happened yet, and the chances are it may not happen at all because the votes simply wouldn't be there. So that's the inside politics when it comes down to it. And then when you're talking about the ground level, if the House ever was to impeach the former president, he would not be convicted in a democratically led Senate. So basically, this is just a bunch of politics playing out on Capitol Hill.
All right, Josh, good to know. Thanks again for joining us here on East Texas Now, and I'm sure we'll talk